She wrote, "Help" on the napkin. The Mafia boss at table 12 noticed before the waiter. "Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much." The night was unusually cold for a spring evening in New York City. The lights from the high-rise buildings outside the Grandview restaurant flickered, casting shadows that seemed to dance against the polished marble floors. Isabella Santos, dressed in a tight black uniform that clung to her frame, tried to push aside the exhaustion weighing down on her. Another night, another double shift. At 24, she was already carrying the burden of 3 jobs just to pay for nursing school. She hadn't seen her friends in weeks, barely slept, and her once hopeful dreams were now just a fog she couldn't shake off. Tonight, the Grandview was hosting one of its most prestigious charity events of the year. The guests were the who's who of Manhattan's elite, their laughter echoing through the grand ballroom. Isabella moved among them, a silent figure in the background, doing her job, pouring champagne, refilling water glasses, serving plates of gourmet food. As she passed the tables, she noticed the usual cliques of business tycoons, influencers, and political figures, all wrapped up in their own worlds of power and influence. But there was one table, table 12, where a different kind of energy hummed in the air. The guests at that table were not just rich, they were dangerous. Isabella had seen them before. The men at the table wore tailored suits that screamed wealth, but it was the way they held themselves, with a dangerous, calculating air, that made Isabella uneasy. There was one man, though, who stood out more than the rest. He was tall, perhaps 6 feet 2 inches, with dark, almost black hair, and eyes that seemed to see straight through her. His face was sharp, aristocratic, the kind of face that could command attention without even trying. He looked like he belonged in the pages of a high-end magazine, but there was a coldness to him, something she couldn't quite place. Isabella had caught him glancing at her a few times, his gaze sharp, yet not at all friendly. A chill ran down her spine. It wasn't until she dropped a tray of drinks near table 12 that she noticed something unsettling. As the glasses shattered, the man's eyes locked onto her. For a split second, she felt as though time had stopped. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. She tried to ignore the flutter in her chest, but she couldn't help it. This man, his presence, had a certain power to it. And then, before she could blink, he was standing in front of her. His sharp, calculating eyes scanned her face, then flicked down to the napkin she had clumsily dropped, the one with the drink stains. And that's when she realized, it wasn't the drink that had caused the mess. It was the small, hurriedly scrawled word on the napkin, "Help." She had written it in a moment of panic, hoping someone, anyone, would notice. She hadn't meant for him to see it. But he did. The Mafia boss at table 12 noticed before the waiter ever did. His voice, low and steady, came as a shock. "You're in trouble." Isabella froze, unable to speak. The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Was she being paranoid, or had he really just read her mind? Before she could say anything, his hand brushed against her arm. Gentle, yet firm. "Come with me," he commanded softly. His voice was not a request. It was an order. A strange feeling of dread washed over Isabella as she followed him, unable to escape his grasp. She didn't know what was happening, but she had a sinking feeling that this night would change her life forever. Hello everyone. Before we continue with today's story, I want to ask for a quick favor. Please make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our new videos. It's completely free, and it helps us bring more exciting and dramatic stories to you. We truly appreciate your support. Where are you watching from today? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you so much. Isabella's heart was racing as she followed him through the dark corridor behind the grand dining hall. The buzz of laughter, the clinking of silverware, and the faint sound of a string quartet playing in the background grew distant, swallowed by the heavy silence between them. His hand was still gently, but firmly, placed on her back, guiding her. She could feel the warmth of his touch, but it only made her feel more uneasy. She had no idea what she had just gotten herself into. He led her into a private office that was lavishly furnished, dimly lit by a crystal chandelier hanging from the ceiling. The door closed with a soft click behind them, sealing off the outside world. The Mafia boss didn't say a word. He simply stood near the desk, watching her. Isabella felt the air thick with tension, her pulse pounding in her ears. She could hardly breathe, trying to steady herself. She had never been this close to someone like him before. His reputation alone was enough to make her skin crawl. He was a figure that commanded respect, fear, and admiration in equal measure. His eyes, cold and calculating, never left her as she stood frozen by the door. For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of her breathing, ragged and sharp. "Why did you write that?" His voice cut through the silence, low but laced with authority. Isabella blinked, startled by the question. She opened her mouth to speak, but found herself at a loss for words. The napkin, the word help, written on it had been a desperate plea. She never meant for him to see it. She never thought anyone in this room, especially him, would even notice. I was just, she stammered, but the words caught in her throat. He stepped closer, his movements smooth, deliberate, like a predator closing in on its prey. She could feel the power radiating from him. The very air around him seemed to thrum with an energy that made her stomach twist. "Who were you trying to get help from?" he asked again, his voice calm but dangerous. Isabella swallowed hard, her thoughts racing. She had to lie. She had to keep her distance. But something in his gaze made her second-guess herself. There was no escaping him. "Not now. It wasn't like that," she said quickly, her voice shaky. I didn't know what else to do." She was still too afraid to meet his eyes. "You don't have to. Lie to me," he replied, his tone softening ever so slightly. He took another step toward her, and his presence seemed to fill the room. He was closer now, close enough that she could smell the faint scent of cologne mixed with something darker. Something dangerous. "You're scared, Isabella. I can see it in your eyes." His words hit her like a blow, and she found herself unable to look away. She had been scared the moment she walked into this restaurant tonight, but now it was worse. Now she was truly trapped. "I don't want any trouble," she whispered, her voice barely audible. She wanted to leave, to run as fast as she could, but something told her that would only make things worse. "Trouble," he repeated, a faint chuckle escaping his lips. "You're already in trouble, Isabella. But the real question is, who put you in it?" Isabella shook her head, panic rising in her chest. She couldn't say anything. She couldn't risk him knowing what had been going on in her life, the things she had been running from for months. The last thing she wanted was to get involved with someone like him. "I'm not a threat to you," she said quickly, her words coming out in a rush. "I just serve drinks. Don't lie to me," he interrupted, his voice hardening. "You're not just a waitress. You overheard something tonight. Something you shouldn't have. And now, you think you can just walk away from it." Isabella's breath hitched. He knew. He knew exactly what had happened, what she had overheard. She felt the weight of the situation pressing down on her. She had thought she could slip under the radar, that no one would notice her. But that was before she caught the attention of someone like him. She had no idea how deep this went, how much danger she was really in. "I didn't mean to," she began, but he cut her off again. "It doesn't matter what you meant. You're in my world now, and you don't get to walk away from it." Isabella's heart pounded. The room seemed to close in around her, the walls suffocating her. She was stuck. There was no escape. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Your cooperation," he replied simply, his eyes narrowing as he studied her. "Help me, and I'll protect you. But if you decide to run, I can't guarantee what happens next." Isabella felt a chill run down her spine. He wasn't threatening her directly, but his words were laced with enough unspoken power to make her fear the worst. I don't know what you're asking," she said, trying to pull herself together. "You'll figure it out," he said smoothly. "For now, just know this, your life is in my hands. I can make it easier for you, but you have to follow my lead." Hello everyone. Before we continue with today's story, please take a moment to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest videos. It's free, and it really helps us bring you more gripping stories. We are so grateful for your support. Where are you watching from today? Drop your city or country in the comments below. We love hearing from you. Thank you so much. Isabella couldn't believe what had just happened. She was standing in front of him, her heart racing, her mind spinning in circles. The Mafia boss, the one she had seen sitting at table 12, was now standing close enough to her that she could smell the faint, expensive cologne he wore. The soft light from the chandelier above cast shadows across his sharp features, and his eyes, cold, calculating, never left hers. He had just made it clear that she was now a part of his world, a world she had never asked to be a part of. But here she was, trapped. "You have to understand," he said, his voice soft but firm, like a promise and a threat all in one. "This isn't just about overhearing something you shouldn't have. You're now involved in something bigger than yourself." Isabella nodded, her throat tight, but she didn't speak. What could she say? She had no idea what she had walked into, and the idea of being part of his world was terrifying. His world wasn't something anyone could walk away from easily. He had made that much clear. "You overheard a deal tonight," he continued, his gaze locking with hers. "A deal that's been in the making for months. You didn't just get caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. You're a piece in a much larger game now." Isabella wanted to argue, too. Tell him she didn't know anything about the deal, that she was just a waitress trying to make a living. But she could tell by the way he was looking at her, studying her, that he wasn't going to let her off that easily. "Who are you?" she finally asked, her voice shaking despite her efforts to stay calm. He took a slow step closer, his presence overwhelming. "I am Adriano Bella," he said, his voice smooth, almost comforting, like a predator luring its prey closer. "And I'm the one who decides what happens to you now." Isabella felt a chill run through her. Adriano Bella, the name sent a shiver down her spine. She had heard whispers of him before. Rumors of a man who controlled everything in this city. A man who could make people disappear without a trace. A man whose power was both feared and admired. "What do you want from me?" she asked, barely able to form the words. "I need you to stay close," Adriano said, his gaze never leaving her. "I need you to help me with something." Isabella's heart skipped a beat. "Help you? How?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You'll see soon enough," he replied cryptically. "But for now, you need to understand something. I protect what's mine, and I'm protecting you now." His words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. She didn't know what to make of them. Was she being protected, or was she being used as leverage? "But you don't have to worry," he added, his voice softening slightly. "You're safe here. I've made sure of that." The idea of being safe in his world felt anything but reassuring. It felt like a trap. Isabella had no idea what he was planning, but she knew one thing for sure. There was no turning back now. "I want you to stay here tonight," Adriano said, breaking the silence. "I'll have a room prepared for you. You're not going anywhere. Not until I say so." Isabella opened her mouth to protest, but the words died on her tongue. She had no choice. She didn't know what else to do. She was caught in this web he had spun, and all she could do was play along, for now. As he led her to a lavish guest room, she couldn't shake the feeling of dread creeping over her. The soft glow from the hallway lights flickered as they walked, casting fleeting shadows on the expensive furniture, the marble floors, the heavy curtains that blocked out the night. Everything about this place screamed wealth and power, but there was something dark lurking beneath the surface. "Get some rest," Adriano said, his voice taking on a colder edge. "We have work to do tomorrow." Isabella nodded, unable to speak. She stepped inside the room, her mind racing with a million thoughts, none of them comforting. The door clicked shut behind her, and she was alone. She collapsed onto the plush bed, her body sore from exhaustion, but her mind was too awake, too alert to sleep. She stared up at the ceiling, wondering what had just happened. How had her life become tangled in the world of organized crime? And most importantly, what did Adriano Bella want from her? Hello everyone. Before we continue with today's story, please remember to hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell so you never miss our latest videos. It's free, quick, and helps us bring more exciting content to you. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much. Isabella sat in the lavish guest room, her eyes fixed on the ornate chandelier above her head. The silence of the room was deafening. Outside, the city was alive with the noise of late-night traffic, but in here, there was nothing. She felt trapped. She couldn't escape this. Adriano Bella, the man who had taken her life and thrown it into chaos, had given her no choice. She had to stay here. She had to play along, at least for now. His words echoed in her mind. "You're in my world now." She could still feel the weight of his presence when he stood close to her, his eyes cold, yet somehow magnetic. There was no question that he had the power to ruin her life in an instant, but it wasn't just that. There was something about him that made her want to stay, something she couldn't explain. She couldn't help but wonder what his intentions were. Was he offering her protection, or was she just another pawn in his dangerous game? The room was luxurious, too luxurious for her taste. The bed was enormous, with silk sheets that shimmered in the dim light. The walls were adorned with expensive art pieces, each one more beautiful than the last. A large window overlooked the city skyline, but it felt as though she was in a prison, not a five-star hotel. Isabella pulled the covers over her body and curled up into a ball. She couldn't sleep. Her mind was racing. She thought about her life before this, when everything was simple. She had a small apartment, a steady job at the restaurant, and dreams of becoming a nurse. Now all of that seemed so far away. She had no idea how she ended up here, in this world of wealth and danger. The sound of her phone buzzing on the nightstand made her jump. She reached for it, her fingers trembling slightly. It was a message from her best friend, Carmen. "Are you okay? Where are you? You disappeared after your shift." Isabella stared at the screen for a long moment, unsure of what to say. She couldn't exactly tell Carmen the truth. She couldn't tell anyone. She didn't even know what was going on herself. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, but the words didn't come. Instead, she put the phone down and rolled over, staring at the ceiling. Suddenly, she heard footsteps outside the door. She tensed, unsure of who it was. The door opened slowly, and there he was. Adriano Bella. He was dressed in a sharp black suit, his face as unreadable as ever. He stepped into the room without a word, closing the door behind him. Isabella's heart began to race again. Was he here to check on her? Or was there something else he wanted? "Are you comfortable?" Adriano asked, his voice smooth, like velvet. His gaze was intense, though, and it made her uneasy. "Yes," she replied, her voice quiet, betraying the anxiety she was trying to hide. He didn't say anything for a moment, just stood there, watching her. His presence was overwhelming. "Good," he finally said. "You'll be staying here for the foreseeable future. I want you to be comfortable, but I also want you to understand that you are under my protection now. That comes with certain responsibilities." Isabella nodded, her stomach sinking. "Responsibilities?" she repeated. Adriano's lips curled into a slight smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You'll learn. Soon enough," he said. "But for now, rest. We have work to do tomorrow." Isabella wanted to ask what kind of work, but the words didn't come. She just nodded again, unsure of how to respond. Adriano stepped back toward the door, but before he left, he turned to look at her once more. "I won't hurt you, Isabella," he said softly, as if sensing her fear. "But you need to trust me. That's the only way this will work." Isabella watched him leave the room, the door clicking softly behind him. She sat up in bed, her mind spinning. What had she gotten herself into? Adriano Bella wasn't just a man who wanted something from her. He was someone who had the power to change her life completely. And whether she wanted it or not, her life had just become a part of his world. She didn't know what he expected from her, but she knew one thing for sure. There was no turning back now. Hello everyone. Before we continue with today's story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our latest videos. It's free, quick, and the best way to support our channel so we can bring you more exciting content. We appreciate you. Where are you watching from today? Leave a comment with your city or country. We love connecting with our viewers. Thank you for your support. Isabella sat on the edge of the luxurious bed, her mind racing with thoughts she couldn't quite process. Adriano Bella's words echoed in her ears. She was under his protection now, but what did that really mean? The room was silent except for the hum of the city outside. She could hear the faint sounds of car horns and distant conversations from the streets below, but they felt like they belonged to someone else's world. She wasn't part of that world anymore. She was trapped in a new one that she didn't understand. She had thought that her life was difficult before, working multiple jobs, scraping by, dreaming of a better future. But now, all of that seemed so distant. Now she was caught in a world of power, danger, and people who didn't hesitate to control everything around them. And it was all because she had overheard a conversation she shouldn't have. Her hand instinctively went to her phone. She needed to reach out, to talk to someone, but she had no idea what to say. Carmen had tried to reach her earlier, but Isabella couldn't bring herself to respond. What could she say? How could she explain what was happening to her? She couldn't even explain it to herself. Her finger hovered over Carmen's contact, but she couldn't bring herself to hit send. Instead, she put the phone down, burying her face in her hands. She felt utterly lost. The door to the room creaked open, and she looked up, startled. There he was again, Adriano Bella. He stood in the doorway, watching her, his expression unreadable. "I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable," he said, his voice smooth. Yet there was something in it that made her feel even more unsettled. "I just want you to understand the situation." Isabella swallowed, sitting up straighter. "What situation?" she asked, her voice shaky. Adriano took a step into the room, closing the door behind him with a quiet click. He walked toward her, his movements slow, deliberate. "You overheard something you shouldn't have. And now, you're involved. But don't worry," he added, his gaze softening ever so slightly. "I'm not going to hurt you." Isabella felt her stomach churn at his words. How could he say that so calmly? How could he stand there and tell her not to worry when everything in her life had just been turned upside down? "Then what do you want from me?" she asked, trying to steady her voice. Adriano stopped in front of her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "I want you to stay with me. I want you to help me." "Help you?" she repeated, confused. "With what?" He raised an eyebrow, the faintest smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "You'll see. For now, just know that I'm offering you protection. You're safe here, but you have to trust me." Isabella felt a knot form in her throat. Trust him? How could she trust someone like him? Someone who controlled everything in his world. Someone who had the power to take her life and twist it in any direction he wanted. And yet, she couldn't deny that she felt safe in his presence, even if it was the kind of safety that came with strings attached. Adriano knelt down in front of her, his gaze intense as he studied her. "You don't have to be afraid. But you do need to understand that you're not leaving. Not yet." Isabella opened her mouth to protest, but no words came out. What could she say? Could she fight him? Could she escape? She knew the answer. There was no escape. Adriano was right. She was already in his world, and there was no turning back. "I don't know what you expect from me," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I can't just stay here forever." He smiled, a faint, almost amused expression on his face. "We'll see. But for now, you're staying with me. You'll be safe here, and when the time comes, you'll understand why." He stood up and turned toward the door, but paused before leaving. "Get some rest," he said over his shoulder. "Tomorrow will be a busy day." Isabella watched him leave, the door closing softly behind him. The silence returned, but now it felt different. The weight of his presence still lingered in the room, and Isabella could feel it pressing down on her. She wasn't sure what tomorrow would bring, but she knew one thing. She wasn't leaving this place anytime soon. And as much as she hated the idea, a part of her wondered if she ever could. Hello everyone. Before we continue with today's story, please take a moment to hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell so you never miss our new videos. It's free, quick, and it really helps support our channel. We can't do this without you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. We love hearing from you. Thank you so much for being a part of our community. Isabella woke up with a start, her heart racing. The soft light from the early morning sun filtered through the heavy curtains, casting a dim glow across the lavish room. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was, and then it all came rushing back to her. Adriano Bella, the Mafia boss, the strange and dangerous world she had found herself in. The events of last night seemed surreal, like a bad dream, but the reality of her situation was all too real. She was trapped. She didn't know what Adriano expected from her, but she knew one thing for certain. Her life had changed forever. She swung her legs off the bed and sat up, running a hand through her disheveled hair. Her mind was clouded with questions. Why had he chosen her? What did he want from her? Was he just using her as leverage, or was there something more to this arrangement? Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, breaking her thoughts. She reached for it, her fingers trembling as she unlocked the screen. Another message from Carmen, this time a simple question. "Where are you? What's going on?" Isabella bit her lip, unsure of how to respond. She couldn't tell Carmen the truth, not yet. How could she explain that she was now part of a world she didn't understand? How could she explain that she was under the protection of a man like Adriano? She quickly typed out a vague response. "I'm fine. Just dealing with some things. I'll explain later." She hesitated before hitting send, then put the phone down. What was she supposed to do now? Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. Her heart skipped a beat as she stood up quickly, adjusting her clothes. Adriano's voice called from the other side. Isabella, come downstairs. We need to talk. Isabella's stomach tightened. She didn't want to face him, didn't want to deal with whatever he had planned, but she had no choice. She took a deep breath and walked toward the door, her feet heavy on the plush carpet. As she opened the door, Adriano stood there, looking as calm and composed as ever. He was dressed in a tailored suit, his dark eyes scanning her with that same intensity that made her feel like prey. Come with me, he said, his voice cool. Isabella followed him down the hallway, her footsteps echoing in the silence. They descended the grand staircase and entered a lavish dining room where a breakfast spread had already been set up. It looked like something out of a magazine, fresh fruit, pastries, and hot coffee. But Isabella had no appetite. She sat down at the table, her hands in her lap, her eyes nervously avoiding his gaze. Adriano took a seat across from her, his expression unreadable. You're probably wondering why I brought you here, he began, his voice low and controlled. Isabella nodded, not trusting herself to speak. I don't want to scare you, he continued, his eyes softening ever so slightly. But I need you to understand that you're not just a waitress anymore. You're involved in something much bigger than yourself. Isabella's breath caught in her throat. She had suspected as much, but hearing him say it out loud made it feel so much more real. What do you mean? She asked, her voice trembling. Adriano's gaze darkened, and he leaned forward slightly. I run this city. The people you overheard last night were connected to my business. They were making deals that could have jeopardized everything I've worked for. And you, by chance, are now a part of it. Isabella felt the weight of his words settle heavily on her chest. I didn't mean to overhear anything, she said quickly, her voice barely above a whisper. I was just doing my job. Adriano smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. I know, but the fact is, you know too much now, and I can't afford to let anyone in my world go without being involved in some way. Isabella felt a wave of panic rush over her. What do you want from me? She asked, her voice shaking. Adriano took a deep breath, his expression unreadable. I need someone who can help me keep things running smoothly, he said. Someone who knows how to navigate this world without getting lost in it. I think you're that person. Isabella stared at him in disbelief. Me? I don't know anything about this world, she said, her voice rising. I don't want to be a part of it. Adriano leaned back in his chair, his eyes never leaving hers. You don't have a choice, Isabella, he said quietly. You're already in it. But I'm offering you something. You can be part of my world, or you can try to escape and face the consequences. Isabella's heart raced as his words sank in. She was caught between two terrifying options. She could stay and become a part of the world she had feared her entire life, or she could run and risk everything. She didn't know what to do, but one thing was clear. Her life was no longer her own. Hello everyone. Before we continue with today's story, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our latest videos. It's free, quick, and really helps support our channel. We appreciate all your support. Where are you watching from today? Drop your city or country in the comments below. We love hearing from you. Thank you so much for being part of our community. Isabella sat in the luxurious lounge area of the Bella estate, her eyes fixed on the marble floors beneath her feet. The weight of Adriano's words still lingered in the air. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was tangled in his world, a world filled with power, danger, and secrets. She had tried to avoid it, to run away from it, but there was no escaping now. Adriano had made sure of that. He had promised her protection, but at what cost? She didn't know if she could trust him, and even if she wanted to, she wasn't sure how much of her life he was willing to control. The mansion was quiet, save for the occasional footstep echoing in the distance. She stood up from the plush armchair and walked over to the window, looking out over the expansive grounds. The sprawling gardens seemed endless, the tall iron gates beyond them standing as a barrier between this world and the rest of the city. Adriano's world. Her world now. She thought about her old life, working multiple jobs, struggling to make ends meet, dreaming of a future where she could finally have a normal life. But that dream felt so far away now, lost in the wake of what had happened. She was no longer in control of her own destiny. As she stared out at the garden, Lost in thought, she heard the door behind her open. She turned around quickly, startled. Adriano stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable as always. He had this way of walking into a room that made the air feel thick, heavy, like everyone was waiting for him to speak. "You're thinking too much," he said, his voice calm, almost too calm. Isabella didn't know how to respond. She was thinking about everything, about her life, about the danger she was in, and about what Adriano expected from her. "I'm trying to figure out what you want from me," she said, her voice tight with frustration. "I've already told you," Adriano replied, his gaze steady. "I want you to help me, and I want you to stay. For now, you're safe here, but it's not just about safety. It's about loyalty and trust." Isabella took a step back, her heart pounding in her chest. "Loyalty," she repeated. "How can I trust you? You've already put me in a situation I can't get out of." Adriano smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was cold, like he knew something she didn't. "Trust isn't given, Isabella. It's earned. And I don't expect you to trust me right away. But you will. In time." He walked toward her, his footsteps soft on the marble floor. "You're in this now. You don't have the luxury of walking away. Not after what you know." His voice dropped slightly, almost as if he were whispering. "But I'm offering you something better than walking away. I'm offering you a place in my world. Protection. Power. Everything you've ever wanted." Isabella shook her head, the words echoing in her mind. Power? She had never wanted power. She had just wanted a better life. She had never imagined that a man like him would be the one to offer it to her, and yet here she was. "I didn't ask for any of this," she said, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and frustration. "I just wanted to get out of the mess I'm in." Adriano stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. "And now you have the chance to do just that. But it's not going to be easy. The people I deal with don't give up power easily. You're going to have to prove yourself." Isabella swallowed hard, her mind racing. What kind of proof did he expect from her? "How do I prove myself?" she asked, though she was afraid of hearing the answer. Adriano's eyes locked onto hers, his gaze intense. "By showing me that you're useful," he said simply. "By showing me that you're willing to do what it takes to survive in this world. Because that's the only way out. The only way to stay safe." Isabella's heart skipped a beat. She had never imagined her life would come to this. She had never imagined being tangled up in a world of crime, of violence, of power struggles. But now, there was no turning back. She was already in too deep. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. "What do you want me to do?" she asked, though she wasn't sure she was ready to hear his answer. Adriano smiled again, a slow, calculating smile that sent a shiver down her spine. "For now, nothing," he said. "Just stay here. Learn about the people I deal with. Watch, listen, and understand the world you're now a part of. When the time comes, you'll know what to do." Isabella nodded slowly, though her mind was a blur. She didn't know what to expect, but one thing was clear. Her life had changed, and she was now a part of something much bigger than herself. Something she didn't fully understand, but that would define her future in ways she couldn't even begin to imagine. Hello everyone. Before we continue with today's story, please remember to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our latest videos. It's free, quick, and really helps us grow our community. Thank you so much for your support. Where are you watching from today? Leave a comment with your city or country. We love connecting with you all. Isabella spent the next few days in a daze, her life taking a strange, new shape she hadn't anticipated. She was no longer just a waitress. She wasn't just struggling to make ends meet. She was tangled in Adriano Bella's world, a world of power, danger, and secrets. She had tried to ignore it, to push it away, but now it was her reality. Adriano had made it clear, she was part of his world now. And despite the fear gnawing at her, there was a part of her that couldn't help but be drawn in. The mansion was a labyrinth of luxury. Marble floors that gleamed like polished glass, intricate gold-framed paintings lining the walls, and tall windows with views of gardens that seemed to stretch for miles. Isabella had never imagined living like this. But every time she wandered through the halls, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was just another piece in Adriano's vast, dangerous game. She wasn't free. Not really. He had told her to watch and learn, to get familiar with his world. She was learning all right. Learning that Adriano Bella didn't just rule the city, he controlled it. and anyone who got in his way was disposed of quietly and efficiently. On the third night after her arrival, Adriano summoned her to his office. The room was dimly lit, the only light coming from a large, ornate lamp on the desk. He was already seated when she entered, his back straight and his posture exuding the same commanding presence that made her feel like a child. "Sit," he said, his voice as cold as ever. Isabella obeyed without question, taking the chair opposite his. Adriano watched her carefully, his eyes intense, as if he were waiting for something. "I've been watching you," he said finally. "You've been doing well. But now, it's time to learn what you're really here for." Isabella's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" she asked, trying to sound confident, though her voice betrayed her. Adriano leaned forward slightly, his hands clasped in front of him. "I need you to start taking a more active role in things. You've been under my protection so far, but now I want you to be useful." He said the word useful so casually that it sent a chill down her spine. "What exactly do you want me to do?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I need you to use your position. You have access to people, to information. You're in the perfect spot to learn things, to hear things." Isabella felt a knot tighten in her stomach. "You want me to spy on people," she said, more of a statement than a question. Adriano's smile widened slightly, though there was still something unnerving about it. "Not spy. Observe. Listen. You'll learn who the key players are in this city. You'll know who's with me and who's against me. And then you'll help me keep it all in check." Isabella didn't know what to say. She had no idea how to be a part of something so dark. But the way Adriano was looking at her, the way he spoke, it felt like there was no choice. "And if I don't?" she asked, barely daring to speak the words. Adriano's eyes narrowed, his gaze sharp and unwavering. "Then you'll be of no use to me. And that would be a mistake, Isabella. You don't want to make mistakes with me." The weight of his words hung in the air. She could feel the tension building, thick and heavy. "I'll do it," she said, almost automatically. She didn't want to be part of this, but what choice did she have? Adriano seemed satisfied with her answer, his posture relaxing ever so slightly. "Good. You'll start tonight." He stood up from behind the desk, walking toward the large window that overlooked the sprawling grounds. "Tonight, there's a meeting. Some people you need to meet. You'll be there, observing. Take note of everything." Isabella stood as well, her hands shaking slightly. "Who am I meeting?" she asked. Adriano turned back to her, his expression unreadable. "You'll see. Just remember, your place here depends on how well you do this. Don't forget that." With that, he turned back toward the window, signaling the end of their conversation. Isabella didn't move right away. She stood there, her mind racing. She was about to become part of something she didn't understand. But she knew one thing for sure. Her life was in his hands now, and the only way out was through him. Hello everyone. Before we continue with today's story, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our latest videos. It's free, quick, and it really helps us grow our community. Thank you so much for your support. Where are you watching from today? Leave a comment with your city or country. We love connecting with you. Thank you for being part of our community. Isabella's first meeting with the people Adriano had mentioned was nothing like she had imagined. The mansion was filled with high-profile individuals, all talking in hushed tones about deals, power plays, and whispers of who controlled what in the city. She had no idea what they were discussing, but she knew enough to keep quiet and observe. Adriano had made it clear this was her first test. She had to pay attention, learn the players, and figure out who was with him and who wasn't. But as she stood there in the corner of the room, watching them interact, she felt a growing unease. The air was thick with tension, and she couldn't help but wonder what she had gotten herself into. The guests were dressed to impress, each one more intimidating than the last. But it wasn't their clothes or the way they carried themselves that unsettled her. It was the fact that they were all part of Adriano's world. A world she had just stepped into, and now, she couldn't escape. As she scanned the room, she caught sight of Adriano standing near a tall, well-dressed man. They were talking quietly, but there was something in their body language that told her they weren't just discussing business. It was the kind of conversation that could determine someone's fate. Isabella's eyes drifted across the room to another man, his face partially obscured by shadows. He was watching her. No, not just watching, studying her. The intensity of his gaze sent a shiver down her spine. She quickly turned away, trying not to make eye contact, but the feeling didn't go away. Adriano had warned her about trusting anyone in this world. She had no idea who to trust, and she wasn't sure if she would ever learn the rules. The conversation in the room shifted, and she heard snippets of words, names she didn't recognize, places she had never been. But one name stood out to her, Viktor Petrov. It was a name Adriano had mentioned before, a name that held a lot of weight in his world. Isabella's curiosity got the better of her, and she strained to hear more. Petrov was a key player, someone with a vast network and influence. But what struck her was the way Adriano spoke about him. There was respect, but also something else, something darker. Petrov is a problem, Adriano had said once, his tone hardening. But he's also an opportunity. We'll deal with him when the time is right. Isabella didn't know what that meant, but she knew it wasn't good. She felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand up as she realized she was surrounded by people who held the power to destroy lives, her life included. As the night wore on, the conversations grew more intense. Deals were being made, promises exchanged, and Isabella was expected to watch and listen. It was overwhelming, and she could feel the weight of every word spoken. She wasn't just in the room to observe, she was being tested. Adriano was watching her, waiting to see how she would react, what she would pick up. She had no idea what he expected from her, but she knew she couldn't disappoint him. She wasn't sure how much longer she could keep up this charade, pretending to be a part of this world. She wasn't cut out for it. She wasn't like them. She had never been involved in anything like this before. But now there was. No turning back. The door to the study opened, and Adriano entered the room with a smile. He locked eyes with her immediately, his expression unreadable. She felt a wave of anxiety wash over her. "How are you finding the evening?" he asked, his voice smooth. Isabella hesitated before answering. "It's a lot," she said honestly. "But I'm trying to keep up." Adriano nodded, his smile widening just slightly. "Good. You're doing well. Keep your eyes open. There's more to this than you realize." Isabella nodded, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know more. She wasn't sure she was ready for the full picture, but she didn't have a choice. Adriano had put her in this position, and now she had to play her part. The weight of his expectations hung over her, but the longer she stayed in this world, the more she realized that she had no control over anything. She was just another piece in Adriano Bella's game, and for now, that was all she could be. Hello everyone. Before we continue with today's story, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our latest videos. It's free, quick, and it really helps us grow our community. Thank you so much for your support. Where are you watching from today? Leave a comment with your city or country. We love connecting with you. Thank you for being part of our community. The days following that night felt like they stretched into infinity for Isabella. The mansion became her new reality, and Adriano's world of wealth and power was now the cage she was confined to. She had learned quickly that there were no simple answers in this world, no safe spaces. Adriano watched her, waiting for her to step into a role she was still trying to understand. She had spent the past few days quietly observing, trying to learn as much as she could about the dangerous game she was now a part of. But the deeper she got, the more it felt like she was sinking. That night, Adriano summoned her again. The air in his office felt colder than usual, the shadows longer. He had been distant lately, his eyes always focused on something beyond her, like he was planning something that didn't involve her. Isabella had learned to keep her distance, but she could still feel the weight of his gaze when he did look at her. "You're ready for the next step," he said, his voice cutting through the thick silence. Isabella froze, her heart racing. Ready for what? She had no idea what he was talking about, but she wasn't going to ask. Not when he looked like he was about to take control again. "What's next?" she asked, her voice steady even though her mind was in turmoil. "I need you to attend a meeting tonight," Adriano replied, his eyes narrowing as he studied her. "You'll be in the room when the decision is made. You'll hear things. You need to understand that everything I do, everything you see, has purpose." Isabella nodded, though she had no idea what he meant. "What kind of meeting?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Adriano smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "A business meeting," he said, "but not the kind you're used to. This one involves people who don't just talk. They act." Isabella felt a chill run down her spine. She wasn't naive. She knew this wasn't just about deals and money. The people in this world didn't just shake hands and make agreements. They controlled everything. You're going to be fine, Adriano said, his voice softer now. Just remember why you're here. Watch, listen, and stay silent unless I tell you otherwise. Do not speak. Do not interrupt. Isabella met his gaze, her mind racing. She had no choice. She was already in too deep. I understand, she said, though she was far from ready. She had no idea what this meeting would be like, but she knew it was going to change things. As she got ready, the weight of her situation pressed down on her. She was walking into a world she didn't belong to, and yet, it was the only world she had now. The mansion's walls seemed to close in on her as she prepared herself. This wasn't the life she wanted. She had dreams, aspirations, a future that didn't involve crime and power plays. But Adriano had made it clear that she wasn't walking away from this. She was already in his world, and the only way out was through him. She followed him into the car later that night, the silence between them heavy. The city lights passed by, in a blur as they made their way to an unknown destination. Adriano didn't say a word during the drive, his eyes fixed on something far ahead, lost in his thoughts. Isabella couldn't help but feel the weight of everything that had happened in the past few days. She had been brought here against her will, thrown into a world of shadows and secrets, and she didn't know how to navigate it. But she would have to. She had no choice. The car pulled up in front of a nondescript building, its windows dark, the only sign of life coming from the two men standing outside. They nodded at Adriano as he stepped out of the car, his presence commanding, his every move deliberate. Isabella followed closely behind, trying to keep her composure. The door to the building opened, and the interior was dimly lit, the air thick with tension. A few men sat around a long table, their faces obscured in shadows. Adriano took a seat at the head of the table, his eyes scanning the room. Isabella stood to the side, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't know what to expect, but she could feel the weight of the moment. This was it. This was the moment she would see just how deep this world ran. The conversation began quietly, the men speaking in hushed tones, their words cutting through the air like knives. Isabella listened carefully, trying to pick up on anything that could give her a clue as to what was really going on. She didn't understand all the details, but she could tell one thing. This wasn't a simple business deal. This was about control, power, and people's lives. Adriano's voice interrupted the discussion, calm and authoritative. It's time we end this, he said, his words cold, but not without purpose. The room fell silent, all eyes turning to him. Isabella could feel the intensity in the air, the shift in the room as Adriano took charge. She didn't know what they were planning, but she knew it wasn't good. She wasn't just a witness. She was a part of this now, and there was no going back. Hello everyone. Before we continue with today's story, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our latest videos. It's free, quick, and really helps us bring more amazing stories to you. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you for being part of our journey. The following days were a blur for Isabella. The meeting that night had left her rattled, unsure of what exactly she had witnessed. She had thought she understood the danger of Adriano's world, but now it felt like she had only scratched the surface. As the days went by, she was introduced to more and more people in Adriano's world. Each encounter made her feel like a small cog in a giant machine, one that she couldn't stop, even if she tried. She was constantly on edge, her mind racing with questions that had no answers. What was expected of her? What had she truly gotten herself into? Adriano had kept his word. He never asked her to speak at the meetings, never asked her to do anything more than observe, but she could feel the pressure mounting. Each time she looked into his eyes, she could see how deeply involved he was in everything, how every move he made was part of a plan much larger than she could comprehend. The mansion felt like a gilded cage, beautiful on the outside but suffocating on the inside. Isabella had no idea how much longer she could stay there, how much longer she could live in this strange limbo where nothing felt real. Her phone buzzed late one evening, breaking her thoughts. It was a message from Carmen. Are you okay? You've been gone too long. I miss you. Isabella bit her lip. Carmen didn't know the truth. She couldn't. She couldn't risk it. Isabella quickly typed a reply. I'm fine. Just busy with work. I'll be back soon. She didn't even know if that was a lie anymore. She had no idea when she would return to her old life, or if she ever would. As she put her phone down, the door to the room opened. Adriano stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "It's time for you to meet someone," he said, his voice calm but firm. Isabella looked up at him, her stomach tightening. She had learned to be cautious around him. "Who am I meeting?" she asked, though she had a sinking feeling she wouldn't like the answer. Adriano didn't reply immediately. Instead, he stepped into the room, his eyes scanning her for any signs of resistance. "Someone who will help you understand your place in all of this," he said. The words hit her like a punch. Her place? What did that even mean? She had no place in his world. She had never asked to be here, and yet now she was entangled in something much darker than she could ever have imagined. Adriano turned to walk toward the door, his steps confident, measured. Isabella hesitated for a moment, her mind still reeling, but then she followed him out. The hallway felt colder now, darker. She could feel the weight of every step as she followed him deeper into the mansion. They reached a door at the end of the hall, and Adriano knocked twice before entering. Inside, a man stood by the window, his back to them. He was tall, his broad shoulders outlined against the light filtering through the curtains. When he turned around, Isabella's breath caught in her throat. He was older than Adriano, with dark, intense eyes and a face that looked as though it had been chiseled from stone. "This is Salvatore," Adriano said, his voice quieter now. "He's one of the people who keeps everything running smoothly. He's been with me a long time." Salvatore's gaze never left Isabella's face, and there was something about it that made her skin crawl. She couldn't tell if it was curiosity or something darker, but she didn't want to find out. "Nice to meet you," she said, her voice steady despite the unease settling in her stomach. Salvatore didn't respond with words. Instead, he gave a small nod and motioned for her to sit down. The room was filled with expensive furniture and art, but it felt sterile, empty. Isabella took the seat across from Salvatore, her eyes flickering to Adriano for reassurance, but he was standing by the door, watching, silent. "You've been observing," Salvatore said finally, his voice deep and calm. "But it's time to do more than watch. It's time to get involved." Isabella swallowed. She had been expecting something like this, but hearing it out loud made it feel so much more real. "What do you need me to do?" she asked, her heart hammering in her chest. Salvatore leaned forward slightly, his eyes never leaving hers. "We're about to make a move. A big one. Adriano wants you to be part of it." Isabella's pulse quickened. She wasn't sure what he meant, but the way he spoke made it clear that this wasn't just a simple decision. It was a shift in the power dynamics, something that would have lasting consequences. "I don't want to be involved in any of this," she said quickly, but even as the words left her mouth, she knew it was too late. Adriano's eyes locked onto hers, his expression hardening. "You don't have a choice," he said softly, his voice carrying more weight than ever before. "You're already involved. The only thing left to decide is whether you'll be a part of this world willingly, or if you'll be dragged in kicking and screaming." Isabella's heart sank as she realized the truth. She had already crossed a line she could never uncross. And now, she was in deeper than ever before. Hello everyone. Before we continue with today's story, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our latest videos. It's free, quick, and it really helps us bring more exciting content to you. We truly appreciate your support. Where are you watching from today? Leave a comment with your city or country below. Thank you so much for being part of our community. Isabella sat in the study, her fingers nervously tapping the edge of the glass in front of her. The cold, polished surface mirrored her own reflection, uneasy, lost in thought, and unsure of what to expect next. Adriano had told her she was now part of his world, but she had no idea what it meant. She didn't know how far he was willing to take this, or how much more of her life he would control. He had promised protection, but she wasn't sure how much trust she could place in that. Her thoughts were interrupted as the door to the study opened, and Salvatore walked in. He was the same as ever, silent, intense, his eyes constantly assessing everything in the room, including her. She couldn't read him, and that unsettled her even more. Salvatore took a seat across from her, folding his hands in front of him as he studied her. "You've been quiet," he said, his voice deep and low. "Is there something you're not telling me?" Isabella shifted in her seat, trying to calm the nervous energy that had been building in her chest ever since she walked into this mansion. "I'm just thinking," she said, though she wasn't sure what she was thinking about anymore. Every moment felt like a decision, a move in a game she didn't know how to play. "Thinking about what?" Salvatore pressed, leaning forward ever so slightly. "About what comes next," Isabella replied honestly, though the words tasted bitter as she said them. What was she really getting herself into? What would Adriano have her do next? She knew she was in deeper than she could handle, but there was no turning back. Salvatore's eyes didn't leave hers as he responded. "You're going to have to be stronger than this if you're going to survive in this world. Adriano doesn't like weakness." Isabella's stomach dropped at the words. It wasn't the first time someone had mentioned strength around her, but the way Salvatore said it made it clear that this was a world that wouldn't tolerate any hesitation. Adriano had already warned her. She wasn't in this world for her own reasons. She was here because he had decided it. Salvatore leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "Adriano's plans are moving forward," he said. "There's no more time for second thoughts. You'll have to prove yourself, whether you like it or not." Isabella didn't respond. She knew that by now, this was her reality. She could fight it, but it would only lead to more pain. "You're expected to attend a meeting tomorrow," Salvatore continued, his tone colder now. "It's time you learn about the other players. Adriano wants you to meet them. But this isn't a social call. It's a test." "A test?" Isabella repeated, her mind racing. She had never imagined that her life would come to this, that she would be meeting the very people who controlled everything in this city. People like Adriano, who could make a decision with a snap of their fingers and change the course of someone's life. "What kind of test?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Salvatore looked at her for a long moment, as if deciding how much to reveal. "You'll see when you get there. But I'll tell you this, it's important. You need to show that you can handle yourself." Isabella felt her stomach tighten. She had no idea what kind of test Salvatore was talking about, but she could already feel the weight of it. She wasn't prepared for this, but it didn't matter. There was no time for hesitation. She had to survive. "Are you ready for this?" Salvatore asked, his eyes hard. Isabella nodded slowly, her throat dry. "Yes," she said, though she wasn't sure she believed her own words. Salvatore gave her a sharp nod, and then he stood, motioning for her to follow him. "Then let's go," he said. The walk to the meeting was quiet, the tension hanging thick in the air. Isabella followed Salvatore, her steps hesitant but determined. She didn't know what awaited her at this meeting, but she knew that she had to show that she belonged in this world. When they arrived at the meeting location, it was a sleek, modern building, its cold, glass exterior reflecting the city lights. Inside, the atmosphere was just as cold, with sharp, clean lines and minimalistic design. The room was dimly lit, but it had an aura of power. She could feel the presence of people before she saw them. Salvatore led her into a large conference room where several men were already sitting around a long, polished table. They were all dressed impeccably, their eyes sharp and focused. Isabella's heart pounded in her chest. She recognized a few of the names from Adriano's world, but she couldn't be sure. She wasn't here to ask questions. She was here to listen, observe, and prove that she could handle herself. The moment she walked into the room, all eyes turned to her. The air seemed to grow heavier, as if everyone in the room was weighing her. She couldn't help but feel like a pawn, being inspected before the next move. Adriano was already seated at the head of the table. He didn't smile when he saw her, but his gaze was steady, as though he were silently judging her. Salvatore took a seat beside him, leaving Isabella to stand at the edge of the room. She was the only one who wasn't part of the discussion, yet she felt as if she were already involved. She didn't know what was going to happen, but she knew one thing. This meeting was the beginning of something far more dangerous than she had ever imagined. Hello everyone. Before we continue with today's story, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our latest videos. It's free, quick, and really helps support our channel. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from today? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you for being a part of our journey. Isabella stood frozen, her eyes scanning the faces around the conference room table. The atmosphere had shifted, the tension palpable. The men seated around her were no longer just distant figures in Adriano's world. They were real. They were dangerous. And now, She was a part of this, whether she wanted to be or not. The meeting had gone on for over an hour, with Adriano and the others discussing business deals, territory disputes, and alliances that would shape the future of the city. Isabella had listened carefully, absorbing every word, every detail. But she wasn't just here to listen. She was here to prove herself, to show that she could be trusted in a world where trust was a currency few could afford. Adriano had been watching her the entire time, his gaze intense and unwavering. She could feel the weight of his expectations pressing down on her. He had made it clear, this was her test. She had to prove that she belonged here, that she could handle the complexity of the world he had brought her into. But Isabella didn't know if she was ready for this. She didn't know if she could become like them. People who made life-altering decisions with a snap of their fingers. She wasn't like them. She never had been. But now, she had no choice but to play their game. The room fell into a heavy silence, and for the first time since she had arrived, Isabella felt truly alone. Adriano stood up, signaling the end of the meeting. The others followed suit, standing and exchanging quiet words, their business done. She remained seated, unsure of what to do next. As the others began to file out of the room, Adriano stayed behind. He walked over to her, his presence looming as always. "You did well," he said, his voice low. Isabella looked up at him, meeting his gaze. "But it's not enough to just observe," he continued. "You need to be more than a spectator. You need to act. That's the only way you'll survive in this world." Isabella felt her heart race at the words. "What do you want me to do?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Adriano's eyes softened for a moment, but there was still something cold beneath them. "I need you to get involved. Not just with the people here, but with the decisions that are being made. You need to understand that this isn't just about you or me. It's about power. And power, Isabella, requires action." Isabella's mind raced. Action? What kind of action was he asking for? She had already learned that there was no room for hesitation in this world, but she hadn't expected this. She hadn't expected to be asked to make decisions, to take part in the very thing that had scared her from the beginning. "I don't know if I can do that," she said, her voice shaking. Adriano's expression didn't change. "You don't have a choice," he said quietly. "The moment you decided to step into this world, you gave up the luxury of choice. You'll do what's necessary, or you'll face the consequences." The words hung in the air like a threat, and Isabella felt her stomach twist. She had already crossed a line, and now there was no going back. "You'll meet with Petrov tomorrow," Adriano continued, his tone casual, as if discussing the weather. "He's one of our biggest rivals, but he's also someone we can use. You'll be there, observing." Isabella's heart skipped a beat. Petrov. She had heard his name mentioned in passing, but she had never imagined she would meet him. Petrov was dangerous, ruthless. He was a kingpin in his own right. And now, Adriano wanted her to sit at the table with him, to watch him, listen to him. "I'm not ready for that," Isabella said, shaking her head. "I don't know if I can handle being in the same room with him." Adriano's eyes hardened. "You don't need to handle him," he said coldly. "You just need to observe. That's all. Take notes, gather information. Your role is to watch, to learn, and to help me keep things in check." Isabella swallowed hard. She didn't want to be involved in this. She didn't want to be a part of the deals, the power struggles, the manipulation. But it was clear now that there was no escape. Adriano had chosen her, and now she had no choice but to follow his lead. The next day, as she prepared to meet Petrov, Isabella's nerves were on edge. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking into something she wasn't prepared for. But she had no choice. This was her life now, and she had to play the game. As she walked into the meeting room, Petrov's cold gaze locked onto hers. She didn't know what to expect, but she could feel the weight of the moment. This was the beginning of something new, and she didn't know if she was ready for it. But there was no turning back. In a world filled with danger, secrets, and power, Isabella finds herself thrust into a dark romance where nothing is what it seems. After overhearing a dangerous conversation, she is pulled into the web of Adriano Bella, a powerful mafia boss who controls the city with a cold, ruthless grip. As Isabella navigates the tension-filled world of dark romance, she is forced to confront her deepest fears, trust a man who is both her protector and captor, and find her place in a world where loyalty and power are everything. With each passing day, the stakes grow higher as she learns more about the people around her, the choices they make, and the dangerous games they play. The dark romance that unfolds is one of power, betrayal, and the constant battle for control. Adriano's world is unforgiving, and Isabella must decide whether to embrace this world of dark romance or risk everything to escape it. As their relationship grows more complicated, Isabella realizes she may never escape the web of manipulation and passion that Adriano has woven around her. The decisions she makes could mean the difference between life and death in this world of power and darkness. What began as an unexpected entanglement in a dark romance quickly becomes a fight for survival, with Isabella caught in the crossfire of a world she never wanted to be part of, but now cannot escape.